Everyone. Justin Trudeau dodges questions about absence of Liberal MP. So that's the title of the article. And it's no surprise Justin Trudeau dodges all questions. He doesn't answer any questions at all. He just offers platitudes after being asked a question. Makes grand generalizations and just talks and talks and talks. It's awful to listen to. So I won't subject you to it, but I will read you this article. Some of it anyway. Quote, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau remained tight-lipped Monday about the mysterious mission of Liberal MP Nicola Lorio. Lorio has not been seen in Ottawa since Parliament resumed sitting in September 17th. On Monday, the Prime Minister dodged reporters' questions about the prolonged absence of the MP, who also has an active law practice in Montreal. So that means he's working as a lawyer, the practice is open, and he's also a sitting MP who is not attending Parliament. Back to the article. Trudeau twice told reporters outside Parliament that they should talk to Lorio about it. Back to me. I did a video about this a few days ago, and Lorio says specifically he did an interview with a CBC News reporter, and in that interview he said, I'm working directly at the Prime Minister's behest, and to understand what I'm doing, speak to him. He's the only person who can tell you what I'm doing. So Trudeau kicking it back to Lorio is kind of odd because it was publicly stated that Trudeau was the one who's given him the secret mission, and Trudeau's the one who should be asked. So it's kind of strange. Back to the article. Last week, Lorio posted a short message on Facebook saying Trudeau assigned him responsibility that necessitate his absence from the House of Commons. Things were no clearer during question period when the opposition questioned the government about Lorio's new tasks. Conservative MP Alan Raynes wanted to know what Lorio's, quote, secret mandate was. And there are no answers, and the answers are not forthcoming. So if you like secret missions and lawyers allowed to be lawyers while also being paid sitting Parliament, like MP's salary, then great, because that's the precedent we're setting under the Trudeau government. We have a secret mission given directly by the Prime Minister to a backbencher, and the backbencher appears to just be ignoring his job. And that's A-okay with the Prime Minister and the whip, apparently. Very strange. I mean, this is just odd. Like, this is just such a departure from business as usual that it warrants a news article. So, I mean, that's saying something, right? Like, that's something. I don't think much will be done about it, but it's something. The Financial Post is reporting that the CRTC is defending wanting broadband network operators to pay 1% of their profits to support Canadian content. Yeah, that's going to be super popular, let me tell you. And you have data on your phone and data in your house. So not only are they going to get you on the one bill, they're going to get you on the 4 or 5 other bills that you're paying for your cell phone and your kids' cell phones and your wife or your husband's cell phone and maybe your mother-in-law or your father-in-law or your own mother or father or whatever, right? Like, people have more than one cell phone that they have to pay for. And this little 1%, which they don't care about, is going to affect you, potentially. But it's funny, the CRTC has the power to increase the bills, right? Or to tell Rogers, you've got to pay this, but they don't have the power to actually enforce their laws. Like, it's very, it's a system that cuts one group of people one way and just gives kind of, benefit the other way. And we're supposed to get benefit out of this, but I'm not sure what the benefit of creating Canadian content with the CBC just runs nonstop news about the United States anyway. They don't talk about Canadian news. To get Canadian news, I had to do this. It's crazy. So back to the CRTC. Quote, it's not a tax. CRTC chair defends proposal for internet providers to contribute to Canadian content. CRTC proposal that broadcasters pay less and broadband providers pay 1% of revenue, the subject of much debate. So the head of Canada's Broadcasting and Telecommunication Regulator defended the proposal that everyone who benefits from Canadians consuming content should contribute to Canadian programming, including internet providers who profit from the rising demand for data. Just don't call it a tax. On one side, Creative Players says internal providers and digital players such as Netflix should step in to stop the so-called CanCon apocalypse, a feared loss of Canadian content as funding dries up. TV and radio operators must pay a portion of their revenue for content, but these funds are eroding as advertisers and subscription revenues are stagnate. So we're not making enough money. And really, I'd like to ask, what do we get out of the Canada content money we pay anyway? I remember when I was a kid and there was some Canada content that was notable on TVO, but the CRTC and regulating all this and pulling more money, and it seems like another tax grab. And we're paying enough taxes, paying way too much taxes, actually. Back to the article. Quote, to be fair, I think the network is our contribution, Pam Dinsmore, Rogers Communications Vice President, Regulatory, said during a panel discussion Wednesday. In an interview, Scott agreed that internet providers have made significant contributions to the network, but said they've also grown exponentially thanks to demand for broadband and growth in online video consumption. He expects most will contribute the same amount of revenue since they distribute both TV and internet. Quote, it's not a tax, he said, instead describing it as a shift. All these creative words. While it could result in extra charges for consumers with standalone internet packages, he said the fee will be minor given average internet bills of $46 per month. Quote, if you're asking me, is 46 cents worth it per month in order to support the future of viable Canadian programming? The answer is yes, he said. So regardless of his protests about it not being a tax, he is just fine with taxing your data, and he's starting with your home data, and he's just not mentioning the data in your cell phone. And he thinks that he thinks you've probably got an extra $3 or $4 every month that they can squeeze out of you to give to their buddies to make TV shows. Right? Great. Fantastic. Great plan, CRTC. And here's another great plan. The National Post is reporting the federal government spent millions on 631 new cars for the G7 summit. Now it's trying to sell most of them. According to the RCMP, buying the automobile outright at a cost of $23 million was considered the most affordable choice. The federal government spent $23 million buying more than 600 brand new cars for use at this year's G7 summit and is now struggling to sell them off secondhand. 431 vehicles were purchased to be used for, quote, motorcade purposes and another 200 for administrative purposes at the Group of Seven summit last June in Charlevoix, Quebec. According to the RCMP, buying the automobiles outright was considered the most affordable choice. The RCMP conducted an analysis prior to acquiring the vehicles and concluded it would be more cost-effective to purchase rather than lease, said Sergeant Marie Demain. The analysis compared the cost to lease a vehicle over a one-year period versus the depreciation amount of a vehicle over a one-year period. Purchasing also made it easier to transport, register, and outfit the vehicles with, quote, the appropriate equipment months in advance of the conference, she said. The RCMP did not address a question about why vehicles from its existing fleet or borrowed from other police forces could not be used. So that's nice. $23 million and we could outfit them early and it was the best choice. That sounds reasonable until I get further down. But I think it's quite funny that they just kind of ignore the question of why couldn't we use any of the cars that we have in Quebec right now in the multiple police forces that I'm sure are outfitted for such things and we could send back after. Yeah, we're not going to answer that question. Moving on. So I'm moving down the article here. It says, quote, from August through October, the feds recouped about $6.3 million from selling 163 vehicles via a government surplus website, mostly out of Quebec City and Montreal. But the attempt to sell such an unusually large number of vehicles appears to be an uphill battle. Quote, it's a good thing they're trying to recoup something from this, but the fact that they're keeping less than 10% of the cars they bought suggests they bought way too many cars in the first place, says Aaron Woodrick, Executive Director of the Canadian Taxpayer Federation. Quote, Canadian taxpayers just paid for 500 new cars that we don't need, that even if they sell them, I'm sure we're going to take a haircut on. This is straight up waste of millions of dollars. Regardless, Woodrick argued purchasing what works out to be 60 new motorcade cars per G7 country is excessive. It's the G7, not the G100. Based on the post-analysis of 135 transactions on the GC Surplus website between the beginning of August and the end of October, the vehicles sold for so far have had an average of just 1,700 kilometers on them. Some have had a total mileage as low as 41 kilometers. The lowest mileage vehicles are 2018 Chrysler 300s, which have a suggested market retail price of between $40,000 and $49,000, according to the driving.ca, that's new, based on 29 sales over the past few months, almost half of which were vehicles that had less than 100 kilometers in mileage. Bidders were able to pay an average of $27,780 per car. So that's a lot less than the $40,000 or $50,000 that they usually are. At the higher end, buyers have been getting new Chevrolet Suburbans for an average of $60,000 compared to the suggested retail price of $58,000 to $77,000. These, 26 of them, have been on the road an average of 1,600 kilometers or 1,700 kilometers, 1,698. So selling the cars, and if you wanted to have a look, the link is in the description to have a look at some of the cars here. And if you wanted to have a Hula girl for $750, or $30. This one's a $30 Hula girl. I'm not sure why, but it's a $30 Hula girl. There are lots on the government surplus website. Does Justin Trudeau have a thing for Hula girls? I'm not sure, but there are an awful lot of Hula girls. Make sure you get a deal on one. Don't be a sucker and pay $30 when you can get one for $7.50. The $7.50 ones are just as good as the $30 ones. Don't be suckered. All right, well, that's our news for this morning, and or this afternoon, I suppose now. And thanks for watching. Have a good day, everybody. Check out the peoplespartyofcanada.ca for injecting some sanity back into our politics, back into our government. Thanks for watching, everybody.